Alright guys, thanks for watching that flight footage. This is a lot of fun. This is totally new to me, little 100 size quads with clean flight already flashed on the boards. Really, really cool. I had so much fun with these the other day. I had to call my friend that I fly with a lot and tell him, you're going to want one of these and you're going to want like 10 batteries with it. It is like so much fun. It's the outdoor version of something like an Inductrix Fpv, which I have sitting over here to the right. I had a lot of fun with these indoors and flying at multi-GP races at the local bars. But you know what? When you go outside and you want to explore some small spaces and small areas, these are what's next. They're a lot of fun. They have 8.5mm motors on them. They have an ACE32 board. They have an 800 TVL camera with 5.8, 40 channels and 5 bands, including race band on here. So very versatile and capable FPV machine. Pretty awesome because I was able to tune it in clean flight, set it up in acro mode, do flips, rolls, all that stuff with this copter. So keep in mind it is 100 size, or I guess around 80mm, 80 to 100mm. But you know what? It doesn't fly like a 200 or a 5-inch prop, or larger 4S battery. But these are a different animal altogether. They're a lot of fun. So there are some caveats to setting these up, and I'm going to go through this for you, and I'm going to show you how to set yours up so that you don't have all the pitfalls that I did. I had to read a lot on RC groups and the forums to get mine set up. So I'm going to save you all that reading and all that researching in the trenches of the internet to setting yours up. Now, there are some quirks. There are definitely some quirks to setting them up. I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm going to save you a bunch of time. So when I was talking to my friend on the phone the other day, I told him some of the things that I did and that I had to sort of do to set it up, and he kind of laughed on the phone and was like, whoa, how did you ever figure that stuff out? I don't know. I just got lucky. I kept going through all the variables and trying to set it up. Now, there are a ton of people who fly these micros. It's kind of like a little subculture out there on RC groups that I didn't even really know existed, but it does. And the board on here is actually called a micro Scisky, and I'll spell that out on the screen here for you. Micro Scisky. It does not say that in the description of the product, but what you're looking at here is you're looking at this board from the side, and I couldn't find any labeling on some of the circuits and connector pins on there, and well, it's pinless, but I couldn't find any information or mapping layout of the flight controller, which was kind of frustrating. But I did find some random pictures that people took that showed a few different details about it. So long story short, I had a lot of fun, and I don't usually give up too easily when I'm trying to figure something out. So that's why this channel is important to you guys, and hopefully my research helps you guys out. So the one you're looking at right here is the T2, and that's the JJPRO T2. I believe it was an 80mm size. And this one is sort of the traditional racer style frame. This is the T1, And I don't know if you can see this picture back here on the box, but you know what? This looks pretty cool. This looks like a little 100 to 80 millimeter size X-frame. So hopefully they're going to come out with that one, and I'll get a copy of that one at some point to show you guys. But I'm going to go through the caveats right now. I'm going to go through some of the setup, and this is going to help you out with yours so that you don't have to return it. A lot of guys were having problems with trying to bind it to their transmitter, and I read a lot of people frustrated with these. So I'm gonna hopefully curb your frustration and get you on the right path and actually outdoors and flying yours. It is a ton of fun. So they both come with 600 milliamp batteries. They're 3.7 volts, and I got about 5 minutes flight time off this battery, and it's the Inductrix was giving me around 2 minutes flight time. So if you've flown Inductrix, you know that these are really short flight time, but both of these totally capable of flying indoors. Also, it does have a built-in DSMX or DSM2 receiver, so you can bind it right to your Spektrum transmitter. Now, really quickly, before we show you how to bind it up to your Spektrum transmitter, it does come with some extra accessories. It comes with some extra rubber bands, and those are the rubber bands that are going to hold your batteries on, some Velcro, a prop remover tool, and this is your little USB charger for your 1S battery. It also comes with some extra motor standoffs in case you somehow damage one. That's kind of nice, and you get 2 sets of props in each box. Also, you get 2 batteries with your micro. Now, one really important tip is that you're going to want to use some thread locker on your bolts to your standoff connections, because it is a metal to metal connection. My bolts were actually falling off inside the box when I got it, so it was missing one of the screws on the bottom. So make sure you use some thread locker when you're flying these, because the screws will definitely fall out. Now, the other thing that I did was I just put a light coating of Plastidip over top of my antenna, and these are 25 milliwatt antennas, so they're not going to give like superior range or anything, but these are close proximity flyers, so don't worry about it too much. You can fly half a football field, but you know what? You don't really have to go further than that, because these are actually very small scale. So you're going to have a lot of fun in a short distance with these. But go ahead and coat yours with some Plastidip, and that might give it a little more structural integrity. Now I'm going to show you how to bind up your JJPRO T1 or T2. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug in your battery, and this was a little bit quirky. I had to do this a few times. So you see the light blinking in there? It's looking for reception, this red light up in the very top of the board. Now follow along these instructions. Now you see it start to flash quickly. Now as soon as it starts to flash quickly, after 10 seconds, turn on your remote and hold down your bind button. Now once it starts to transmit and bind, you'll see that light go off. If you did it correctly, it'll go off and turn out, and then it'll go solid. So it doesn't look like it held it. Now, why didn't it hold it? There's a trick to this, guys. Here's the trick. So I'm going to turn everything back off. And this is probably where people were saying, oh, mine doesn't bind to my transmitter. I want a refund. So the trick is you have to set this down. You have to turn it on. And you have to put your transmitter really close, within 5 millimeters to the board itself. Now, when it starts flashing after 10 seconds, go ahead and turn it on. Hold down your bind button. And aha, look at that. The light went out. And now it's turned back on and it's solid. So the trick is you have to actually get your antenna close enough within 5 millimeters of this board to bind. I have no idea why. And that concerned me about transmission out in the field, but I was still able to get like a football field away, or half a football field. So that is the way that you bind up your T1 or T2. Very important that you do that within 5 millimeters of the flight controller. Otherwise, it's not going to bind. But now I'm all bound up, and I should be able to hit my arm switch, and now I can fly. Now, this is some of the most important information for you guys for these small boards. This is this micro Scisky. Reflashing this board is quite complicated, and it's really different than some of the other SP racing boards and NAS 32s that I've worked with. Now, this information is very important for you. If you screw this board up and you can't get it to connect back into clean flight, you're going to have to reflash it. Some people get upset and then they realize that they think that they have killed the board, they've screwed it up, and they have to throw it away. Their board's no good. No, you just have to reflash it. So this is the way you do that. This board requires that you do two things. One, you're going to have to create a jumper cable. Now, a jumper cable is a little piece of wire that you're going to solder on one side, and then you're going to connect it on another side. So you're going to have both of these connected to the board. And I'll show you an image, a graphic on the screen here. Some nice guy took a picture of this and showed us where to solder the points to. So go ahead and solder up your jumper cable. Now, I tried to flash in Clean Flight after I had my jumper cable on there, and I got all excited and I said, okay, here we go, we can do this. No, it didn't work, even with the jumper cable on it. So I said, well, what the hell? And traditionally, I'm used to holding the boot button. This is a boot button on here, by the way. Now, it's a two-step process. You have to have the jumper cable on there, and you have to hold down the boot button during the firmware update flashing process, which I've never seen that before. But with this particular board, and this is a Scisky, micro Scisky, this is the way you have to do it. This is one of the latest versions of the micro Scisky. So go into Clean Flight. I'll try to get this to focus here for you. Select Naze. Now for the latest version, you're going to do that for the most stable version. You're going to do no reboot sequence. You're going to do flash on connect, meaning that you're going to plug the small end here and have that ready to go plugged into the board. And when you have all this stuff set up and you have the firmware downloaded here, you're going to do full chip erase and 256,000 here on the manual baud rate. Then you're going to plug in this side. So once you do that, you're also going to hold down the bind button or the boot button, and if it doesn't do it right away, click flash firmware, and after you have the jumper wire on there and you're holding down the boot button, it will begin flashing after you click flash firmware or do it automatically. So that's the way you guys are going to have to do this. And it does sound complicated, but I couldn't find any other videos out there that showed this information. So I found it in the trenches on the forums. So if that helps you guys, I'm really happy for you. And that's very, very important information. Okay, so now go ahead and connect yours to Clean Flight, and we will go in and we'll check out some of the settings on here. I'm going to show you how to set up your Spektrum receiver. Now, in configuration, let's see, ESC motor features, very important that you select one stop, motor stop, and disarm motors regardless of throttle value. Have those two checked. For your minimum throttle, set that to 1150. If that doesn't work for you, try 1250. Anything below 1150, it will not arm the stick. Now, this is also really important information. Your copter will not arm unless you have your trim switch on your DX8 or whichever controller you're using. That throttle trim has to be all the way down at 0. So you have to push the trim on your throttle all the way down to 0. Once you get all the way down to 0, after you've bound it, it will spool up, and you use your throttle arming switch. Now, before that, it would not arm for me. So that was the trick in getting the motors to spin up, because I sat here for days not knowing why the motors wouldn't spin up. It was driving me a little bit crazy. So set your minimum throttle value here to 1150, your maximum throttle to 2000, your minimum command 1000. This is very important. Now also in the CLI, you want to tell the motors the frequency rate. So the way you're going to do that is, I believe it might be on the instruction manual, and this is also important so that the motors function properly. Let's see here. So what you're going to type in is set space motor underscore PWM underscore rate equals 32,000. Okay, hit return. Once you've hit return, type in save, hit return again. So now it's going to reboot and your motors are going to function properly. Now we're going to hop over to the PID tuning screen. I left all the PIDs at the default numbers here, and I changed the rates to 0.50 on the roll, pitch, and yaw rate, mainly because I wanted a little quicker roll. You can play around with these rate numbers and see if, if you want it to roll quicker or flip quicker, you can do that. I'm probably going to increase mine a little bit later, but I started out with 0.50 on all those rates. Now down to the receiver menu, this is where it got a little bit tricky as well. So you're going to want to make your sticks work, go ahead and plug in the battery on your copter and turn on your transmitter and have this all armed and on in clean flight, because you're not going to see these channels move unless you have everything turned on. It won't hurt the copter. So now setup is interesting here. Now for the channel maps, you need to select Futaba High Tech here. When I selected Spektrum, it didn't work. So I went to Futaba High Tech and I saved it down at the bottom right. Once I saved it, I was able to see that my throttle stick left and right were working in the yaw, working on the roll, left and right, and the pitch forward and backwards. And my throttle, we're working on my current values. Also, my auxiliary channels and my arm switch. Now, like I was saying, if you select the default here, that's not going to work. If you select Spektrum, that's not going to work. You have to select Futaba and then save it. And then you should have your switches as well. Now, if you look at these channels, if any of these are backwards, if any of these move the wrong direction, so if you take your right stick and you move roll axis to the left and it goes the other way, that means you need to go into your Spektrum radio and reverse that channel, which is going to be your aileron. So go in and reverse the aileron. Also for pitch, same thing. If you push the stick up, the right stick up, and this purple one goes left, it's the wrong direction. So that means that when you go to fly this, it's going to crash if you have it wrong. So go ahead and push up, you should see that level, that purple one, rise. If you go down, it should go down. Okay, and yaw, if you push to the left, the blue one should go left. Now if you go to the right, it should go right. Throttle should go up and down, just like that. Now, same thing for your auxiliary channels. If you see them in the modes, if these channels move opposite way, if they're starting over here, moving this way, you're going to need to go in and switch your auxiliary channels around as well, reverse those as well. And mine were reversed, so I had to go in and switch them around. Now, one last thing on the ports menu, you want to have UART1 selected and serial RX selected here. That's going to be the proper way to have your identifier see your receiver correctly on the board. And also, folks, on the receiver screen, if you're looking for it, Clean Flight has moved where they have the receiver modes at. It used to be over here in the configuration menu, and now they've moved it down here in receiver, and it does make sense, but it is hiding down below now. So go to your receiver tab. Once you've set your receiver and your channel maps up here, you can go down here and select what you want to select is RX PPM for this board, and you want to select Spektrum 1024. And once you have that done, save that, and you should be good to go. Okay guys, the setup is all done with the JJPRO T1 and the T2, and I feel like I just leveled up in the kingdom of micro FPV. There is a huge subculture for micro FPV, and there are guys out there that strictly only fly the micros, and this is sort of a level up from the Inductrix. It flies better than the Inductrix, it has more power, and it handles wind and weather outdoors a little better than the Inductrix, because any bit of wind just pushes these to the ground if you've ever flown these. So much more powerful 8.5 millimeter motors on here, tunable in Clean Flight or Beta Flight, which is really, really nice. You can fly it in acro and do flips and rolls and all that fun stuff. You can also fly it in places that you would never really fly it, in small spaces, little tiny parks, fly in between tiniest tree gaps, and they really do fly pretty fast. So you get that feeling that you're flying a larger quad when you're flying this 100 to 80 millimeter size. Super, super cool. Highly recommend it. I went through my box and I collected all of my 600 milliamp batteries. I found some SEMA battery that was a 500 milliamp, but I'll fly that one as well because it has that same connector on there. Batteries are pretty cheap on Amazon or on GearBest. You can check those out. Get a handful of those batteries. You're definitely going to want it. Once you fly it the first time, you're going to keep flying this one. So I hope to see some more releases from JJPRO and other companies that are kind of getting into the 100 class racer series. These are super cool. So anyway, guys, thanks again for watching. Hopefully this video helped you out. I'm Justin Davis at Drone Camps RC. I'll see you on the next one.